Hello, everybody, and welcome in to another episode of the Couch GMs podcast. I'm so glad that Tyler seemed to notice probably my voice crack in there.
That
At
was
least
really high pitch.
very high pitch. I don't know where that came from. But if you're looking, you're seeing correctly. George Kurth, Cody Roadcap, Tyler Snyder. The trio is back. Guys, how you feeling today?
I'm really good.
Oh, my God.
Sorry.
Should I do it? I'm doing great.
I had no voice slip-ups the entire time you guys were gone. And if you really want to go challenge me on that, go listen to everything that we did while Cody was gone. And I was working with Marcus here. But now, of course, I can't even get through the first sentence without you guys making fun of my voice. So this is a great time.
I'm really glad that everybody got to watch George hit puberty live on the stream. But anyway, back to how we're doing. I'm doing good. Had to wear my Vols jersey today because the Titans are trash. So had to wear at least something winning. Beat Alabama, just saying. How are you, Cody? You've been gone for like a month.
I know. I feel like you. You know, I'm going to get the recurring guest label here eventually. But no, doing great. Good to be back. Looking forward to talk some ball.
Looking forward to talk some ball. Make sure you follow us at the Couch GMs, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Hit us in the DMs with any questions you have or in the chat as we are live. Normally Mondays and Thursdays. Obviously, today is Friday, but we don't go by the rules. It's fine. Mondays and Thursdays, check us out on YouTube and Facebook. All right, guys, I'm excited to catch up with you guys about the NFL. Why don't we sit back, relax, and chat? My favorite thing in the world will forever be how literal Tyler takes our bumpers. He also gets the best bumpers, but
it's true.
Had to find a way to get him on the show.
Yeah, right. We just got to give it.
I still hate you. After all these shows, I still hate you.
And I would have it no other way. Big news. The Colts are benching quarterback Anthony Richardson after his checking himself out of the game debacle and the fact that they don't seem to be as good of a team with him playing as opposed to Joe Flacco. Immediate thoughts on Anthony Richardson being benched and Joe Flacco getting a shot seemingly permanently as the Colts starting quarterback.
All right, we'll see.
This is going to be Cody the entire show.
Good insight. Wow.
Well, look,
really?
all I'm saying, I understand. I'm just saying we'll see if Flacco stays in for the rest of the season, if they bring Richardson back. I know there was some question marks, like you mentioned, him checking himself out because he was tired from running around. We'll see how if the Colts make a run. You know, the Texans lost last night. They're still in the mix for the AFC South. So if Flacco goes on a run like he did last year with the Browns and leads from the playoffs, yeah, it's probably that. But if he has a couple bad games in a row, they go back to Anthony Richardson. Only time will tell. I personally think they should make him QB3, let him develop, and like he was supposed to coming out of it. He was never supposed to start right away. Let him develop and not even worry about bringing him back, but we'll see if that actually happens.
I mean, I don't like the decision. I know that Joe Flacco has played better. I don't think the Colts are really that much of a Super Bowl contender with Flacco, with Richardson, with anybody. Could they still win the South? Yes, but I still don't find them as a actual Super Bowl contender. So I don't think the move was worth it, in my opinion. Plus, you're basically ruining the confidence of Anthony Richardson forever. Like, I get what you're saying of he wasn't supposed to start right out of college, and I agree with you. He should have sat for a year and developed, but the issue is they already started him. They've already been starting him. They already ruined that chance. Like, now you're just crushing the confidence of a young quarterback by benching him, and we've seen this with top drafted quarterbacks in the past, and they usually don't bounce back from this. So I think you're pretty much sealing the deal with Anthony Richardson for the future, in my opinion.
And the biggest thing, even if they do bounce back, I don't think there's a single one that's bounced back with the same team. Like, I'm thinking of Geno Smith. He was on 3 different teams. Sam Darnold seems to be bouncing back. He was on 3 different teams. Like, so you basically close the window on Anthony Richardson as a Colt. I agree with Cody. I think if they're going to go this route, they should try to angle it as developing him because I think he really does need it. He definitely has the athleticism to play in the NFL, but he doesn't have the passing ability or the ability to read the defense yet, which I think is why Flacco gives him so much more upside as a team. But because they've already been starting him, yeah, I'm with Tyler. Like, you're closing the door on him, at least as a Colt, and it really does hurt his outlook on being a starting quarterback just because he started for such an extended period of time, and now you're putting him back to the bench.
So I got a question. Do you think he gets traded this offseason? Like, you
Yes.
both seem like the doors. So you guys think he's done in Indianapolis?
Yes.
I don't think he gets traded this offseason. But I think if they win out with Joe Flacco, I still don't think Joe Flacco is their future. I still don't think they're going to want to lock into Joe Flacco as their future. So I think they could be looking for a free agent quarterback, or possibly looking to move him. But if they don't win out and they start losing out, I feel like at that point they are going to trade him and they're going to try to draft a quarterback. But either way, I don't see him as a starter next year, but I don't necessarily see them trading him yet. Because especially since he's a rookie, even though he was a top round pick, he's still cheaper than if you go get a veteran quarterback. So it's at least a top level backup, if nothing else, for a cheap contract.
I just think, and maybe we're completely different on how we view Anthony Richardson. I don't think I think he needs the time to develop, but I think they could probably get their first round pick back if they trade him. I think some team will give him for that upside. He went number 4 overall, Las Vegas. Like, I don't see why they wouldn't give up their first round pick. They were already interested in him a year ago. Like, there's other teams out there. This is a weak quarterback class. I think it's good that
it helps that there's no real good quarterbacks coming into this draft.
For sure. So I think it'd be interesting to see how this plays out. I'm not ready to rule out Anthony Richardson done as the Colts, maybe for this year, but I think he'll be in line to start next year, as long as he's starting to show progress and development, because he has all the tools. He just has to get his feet right.
And to back up Cody, getting his first round pick back, I mean, this hasn't, as much as it's been really bad and frustrating, especially for fantasy owners, it hasn't been as much of a dumpster fire as like Bryce Young has been. Like, he's shown some signs, he has some abilities. Like Bryce Young, it feels like the Panthers are stuck in the mud every single time he's on the field. So like, there's definitely upside enough that I think they could get a decent draft pick. And I have to think, if the relationship between the Colts and Richardson's estranged at all, their move would be to trade him, try to recoup that pick, and see what comes from it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit different in my opinion, because, I mean, you're talking about Anthony Richardson, who's playing with Josh Downs, Michael Pittman, and Jonathan Taylor, compared to Bryce Young, who's playing with Chuba Hubbard, Deontay Johnson, and Xavier Legette. It's two completely different situations for me. But I do hear what you're saying. It does look like Bryce Young hasn't done really anything whenever he's on the field, but he did show some flashes this past week, and I'm hoping he bounces back. I really do.
I mean, could I make the same argument for like how Sam Darnold looked pre this year, or how Zach Wilson looked? Like that kind of quarterback, same situation.
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Dude, I didn't even know Bryce Young played last week, so I'm still in vacation mode. So there you go.
Cody giving all the insight. For anyone who didn't know, Bryce Young played last week. Didn't play too well, but Stephon Diggs is set to miss the rest of the season with a torn ACL, a really tough blow for the Texans, who are already down Nico Collins. But for Stephon Diggs, who, made the switch, he's getting up there in age. Do we think Stephon Diggs still comes back next year and makes a big impact, or we think this is the start of the ramp down on the Stephon Diggs era in the NFL?
Bro, I think he was already ramped down.
Dude, I think it's going to be super interesting. Now, he's not going to get the big contract, but if you remember when he got traded from the Buffalo Bills, the Texans reworked his deal to essentially make it a 1-year deal instead of having control for the next 3 seasons. So they were like, let's do a prove-it year, see how it works. Now he's injured. So that could work in the Texans' favor, being able to get him back in the building at a cheaper contract. Like, I don't think another team is going to give Stephon Diggs a big deal coming off of an ACL injury. He might have to do another 1-year deal. And he did play pretty well with the Texans. And based on, I know it's just one game, last night against the Jets, they struggled offensively without Nico Collins especially, but then no Diggs. When they got in the red zone, they didn't know where to go. I mean, they were throwing to Hutchinson and the one other guy, I can't remember his name, but Mechie. Like, there was just guys that was like, they've taken a big step back, and you have to have concerns about the Texans moving forward and not potentially.
Yeah, but they
being
get
that
Nico
powerhouse
back
team.
next week, so
Yeah, and that would make a big difference. And I mean, Tank Dell seems to be generally fine. Like he had a decent game last night too, but as the wide receiver one, he just hasn't given them that X factor that they've needed, which is why Diggs was still taking over that role. And then obviously before that, there was Nico Collins. So
Yeah, and you do have to worry too with Nico's hamstring. Will he be back to 100%? Like I know they gave him the full 4 weeks off, and we hope he was. He was playing lights out, one of the best receivers in the league to start the season. And I'm hopeful that he comes back that way. But hamstrings can be iffy. We've seen it before. People come back, tweak it again, or aren't 100%. Luckily, they play. Sorry, Tyler, you might want to plug your ears. They play in a division that they should still be able to win, even after last night's performance.
the division they're still in the driver's seat of. So exactly. And then in the year of wide receiver trades, one more occurs. The Baltimore Ravens trading for Deontay Johnson. So one less weapon for Bryce Young. As Tyler noted, that was his number one guy.
Adam Thielen's coming back, so we're good.
Adam Thielen's coming back. Carolina's on the rampage on the way back. But no, Deontay Johnson to Baltimore. This one was interesting to me because you always feel like Baltimore could use another receiving weapon. But it's interesting how he's going to fit in with Bateman, Flowers, and the tight ends. So how do you think this works? Let's spin a fantasy angle on it. How does this work? How does it affect the tight ends and Zay Flowers?
You're still starting Zay Flowers, and you're still starting Mark Andrews because apparently he's resurged. I'm not touching anybody else pass catcher wise on that team,
including Johnson.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tough blow because before Bryce Young came back, Deontay had a couple good weeks there. So maybe you were able to trade him high, but now he goes into another muddy. I think there'll be some weeks where he's the number one guy. Then some weeks it'll be Zay Flowers. Some weeks it'll be a tight end. It's going to be like, pick your poison. Which one do you want? And unfortunately, unless it's Lamar Jackson or Derrick Henry, it's going to be playing roulette with all the other pass catchers options in Baltimore.
Time will tell on that one, but in the meantime, Cody, feel free to get your button ready. Why don't we break down some of these Week 9 games with our Week 9 fantasy preview? 2 bye weeks this week. I enjoyed not having any bye weeks last week, but the 49ers and the Steelers on bye, so we're replacing some guys like Brock Purdy, Mason, Deebo Samuel, Kittle, Pickens, Najee Harris. And why don't we start with that Ravens team we were talking about? They are hosting the upsurge Denver Broncos. Broncos have looked decent with Bo and Nick starting to come around, but I also feel like they haven't really played some super high-level competition. So maybe some confidence is good for the young quarterback, but I don't know if they're quite as good as their record's showing right now.
I would agree with that. I think that's pretty solid. It would be interesting too how the Ravens bounce back. I know it's divisional rounds games always get confusing, but they did drop one of the Jameis Winston led Browns last week in kind of a stunner. So, does that start to cause some concern if this game's close, even if they pull it out with what we think with the Baltimore Ravens, or do they just pull away and dominate like they did against the Dallas Cowboys and put the Broncos back in place? Should be a fun one to find out.
They did go on a 5-game run after they lost to Gardner Minshew. So,
yeah, but a lot of those games were real sketchy coming down to the wire, as most Ravens games are. I feel like Ravens games always come down to they're one play away from winning or losing, which I know they say in the NFL, you're always one play away, but the Ravens are legitimately one play away from winning or losing every game. So it could just come down to, do they make that mistake? Do they go flat in the fourth quarter? Do the Broncos come out with some extra juice because they're playing a top team like the Ravens and they want to prove themselves? Should be an interesting game, but my money's still on the Ravens to win this one. I'm not picking the upset here.
Really quick fantasy spin. So Javonte Williams has been very up and down. No touching against the Ravens defense.
No.
Yeah, I haven't touched him all season.
Wouldn't play single Bronco. No.
I know Bo Nix is QB 12 right now. He's a tier 1 QB in fantasy football, which is kind of wild. Yeah, I still wouldn't play one.
Cool. I think we're all on the same page there. One of the more interesting teams, the Miami Dolphins, week 2 of Tua being back. They're going up to Buffalo to face the Bills. They played a solid game on offense. It looked like they were starting to get their feet back under them. They obviously ended up losing last week to the Cardinals. But the biggest thing I have a question for you guys on, Tyreek Hill did decent. Achane and Mostert kind of, started to get together. Jalen Waddle was nearly non-existent. Are we worried about Jalen Waddle?
I'm not. Personally, I feel like he's going to be fine. But, I mean, they have been without their starting quarterback for how long? And the entire Miami Dolphins was non-existent for weeks there. So it's going to take some time for them to get back into a rhythm, get back into a groove. But once they get there, we've seen what Waddle can do. It's the same team. So I think it'll be fine. Just might take a week or two. And if you're in a position where you desperately need him to make the playoffs, maybe you don't have that time to wait. Maybe you could try to trade him high. But if you're, a top seeded team, you can go get that guy who might be a little worried about Waddle and try to get him cheap right now, because now would be the time to get him, in my opinion. I don't know if Cody feels the same.
I don't feel the same, but I haven't liked Waddle all season. I didn't like him coming into the year. Like he wasn't a guy that I don't have any shares of him. Wasn't a guy I targeted. So am I worried? No, because I didn't really like him coming in. I think he's going to have some weeks where he puts up 35, and then he's going to have a bunch of weeks where he only puts up 2 catches for 12 yards, or he gets an end around or something like that. Like there's just so many mouths to feed there, and I think it's a clear Tyreek Hill's the top passing option. They run a lot through Achane and Mostert, and then it's Jalen. He's basically option number 4.
But I think what you said there is why people like him and hate him at the same time. Like, he is very high variance, but when you put the numbers together, he's actually a pretty solid wide receiver. And I saw a stat come over the Twitterverse, Xverse this week that was saying how Waddle in his last 17 games with Tua, so last full season with Tua, he was wide receiver 15 in the NFL. So the fact that he does put up the 2 and 3 point games happens, but you're also taking that with enough high upside games that it's evening out. It just stinks that if you get one of those duds in the fantasy playoffs, you're in trouble. But he's somebody who I think still has the ability to be someone to help you on the way down the stretch.
In fairness, devil's advocate, since we're talking about it, that does include the 4 games that Tyreek, did he miss 4 or was it 3 last year with Tua to end the season, where Waddle was wide receiver 1 and looked like it too. That I think that's he's almost a handcuff in a way. If Tyreek Hill goes down, he gets all that Tyreek Hill work plus some. But with Tyreek Hill there, he's the number 2 option. So it's a give or take thing. Like but to Tyler's point and what he's saying, when that offense is humming, you expect 35 points, and you think, what, he'll still get his, even if he is option 3 or 4.
Well, I also think that Tyreek is injury prone, so I feel like he's not far off from having Waddle be wide receiver 1. But we also see a lot of wide receivers that are wide receiver 2 that we still play. I mean, you could talk about either one of the Rams receivers when they're both healthy, whichever one you consider to be the wide receiver 2. Like, it could always be the other guy that week. You talk about T. Higgins. Like, T. Higgins is a guy you always want in your lineup when he's healthy, but, it could always just be all Jamar Chase, and Higgins doesn't get much. The DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett era, back when they were both in their prime. I mean, it could be one guy one week, it could be the other guy. It's the risk you take when you're taking a wide receiver 2 or a lineup that has 2 really good receivers. But I feel like you drafted them with the purpose of knowing that that's going to happen. If you didn't like that kind of a split, you would have taken a chance on a number 1 wide receiver on a bad team who's a little bit lower, and you would have stuck with that instead. But you took this guy knowing that he is the number 2, but you're taking him for the upside. So in that case, I'm not afraid, because I feel like the upside is still there. I don't feel like his value has dropped off from where it was. He's just as inconsistent as he was before.
And I think people are just overreacting because we got the down game on the get right game, is what people called it, or the 2 is back, let's show it off game. And then we got the down game by him. But I think it's just concern now because it hit at the wrong time.
Yeah.
I have a quick question about the Bills wide receivers too, because it seems like ever since Amari Cooper showed up, Keon Coleman's been breaking out as well. How confident are you in Coleman going forward?
You need
I'll
a
let
flex
Cody take
play.
this one first.
I was gonna say if you need a flex play on during bye weeks, like if you're missing Samuel or Ayuk, not Ayuk, he's out with the season. But if you're missing Samuel this week, you need to throw him in for flex. Sure, why not? It's a positive matchup. It's not a guy that I'm like has to be in your lineup, but he can fill a spot or two on a week to week basis.
Yeah, Coleman's a guy I like to have on my roster. And I agree with Cody. I think he's a good flex play. I think he's better than a lot of the flex plays out there. I'm actually higher on Coleman than Cody is probably, but he's also not a guy that I have in my lineup every day. I mean, I have Brian Thomas Jr. that I've benched all season long because he's a great flex play, but I just can't find a way to get him in my lineup. And I feel like Keon Coleman's that same guy. Like, I think he's putting up the weeks that he deserves to be in your lineup, but you still just don't feel good enough about him over some of the bigger names to roll him every week. But yeah, if you're missing a guy due to injuries or something like that, like he's a good guy to throw in there. I like him a lot more than Khalil Shakur. So
Yes, I think Shakur
Agreed.
definitely took a step back with Cooper coming in. The man who has tied for the best record in all of the World Cup leagues is sitting here benching Brian Thomas, who's currently wide receiver 5 on the season. What are you do? Okay.
Yeah.
Teach me how to get lucky in fantasy like you are, apparently. That's what
lucky.
I need.
Skill.
Teach me your skill then. Chargers at Browns is the next game on here. And the Browns did get a win with Jameis Winston over the Baltimore Ravens last week. And we saw some breakouts and we saw the Browns offense look better than it has all season. And I can't say any of us are shocked, but was last week what we should expect? Or was it that first game boost that like you get when you have the new quarterback, new head coach, and then it kind of evens out?
I don't know if it was. They probably got a boost, right? Like Winston played great, and he'll make some dumb throws here and there, right? Like he's not going to be almost perfect.
35
like he
touchdowns,
was.
30 picks, man.
Exactly. So you know what you're getting with him. But like this Browns team was so much better when they lost to Sean last year. Like they're doing it again. Like I think they're a team that they can make some noise in the AFC now that they're out of Deshaun's shadow. Like Winston might save Stefanski's job again because they won't just let him pull the trigger in benching Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I also think it depends on your league setup because I know scoring is different for every league. You might be in a league where an interception costs 2 or -2. You might be in a league where it's -1, and I've seen leagues where you don't lose any points for interceptions, or maybe the scoring is so much higher for quarterbacks. I feel like Jameis Winston puts up the stats that the guy likes to air it out. He doesn't care. So he puts up the stats to get you the points. If you're in a league where interceptions don't hurt you quite as much, or maybe even the points are inflated for quarterbacks for passing stats, I feel like Jameis Winston's a pretty good play most weeks, honestly. I started him last week and I won a matchup because I started him. Like he did so well that I literally won because of Jameis Winston. So yeah, I like him. I wouldn't be like he's an every week must start for me, but play the matchups, and this matchup's not bad, so I'd start him.
Is Cedric Tillman also real by your
That was my
analysis
question.
over there? Okay, well, ask Tyler first then, because both Cody and I have the same question.
I can tell you that I feel like Cedric Tillman definitely gets an uptick. I mean, anytime you have a quarterback that airs it out more and is more consistent throwing the ball, any receiver on the team gets an uptick. But he's not a guy that I feel comfortable with. I feel like you could put Cedric Tillman in I put him right below Keon Coleman. Like you could flex him in a good matchup, but outside of that, I don't trust him. I had some high waiver choices in a few leagues, and I didn't go after him in a single one. So if that answers your question for you.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of where I was at too. I had some waivers, and even though I was like my third option because I was like middle tier, and the guy I wanted number 1 made it to me because people took Cedric Tillman. I just wasn't in that. There's still Jerry Jeudy there, and David Njoku's still there. Nick Chubb's coming back. Like it was 1 week, 2 touchdowns. Don't want to chase the points.
I will say Nick Chubb did have a lot more carries than any other running back this week. and he's doing something with it. He didn't get the touchdown this week, so he wasn't quite as valuable, but he's still getting the yards. He looks good. I do think that Nick Chubb is at the minimum at a flex play now, but with how bad running backs have been around the league, like he could be a running back too for a lot of teams out there now.
He definitely needs a few more weeks to get his legs under him, but I do like the outlook of him now the rest of the season because of having Jameis Winston there. So I'm glad you mentioned him, Tyler. Anything else on Browns Chargers? Ready to move on?
Keep it moving.
Hope your team wins.
This
George.
one's thanks so much. This game's not exciting, but I have to mention Saints at Panthers. Derek Carr returning. We're hoping that this means something for Alvin Kamara, Chris Olave. I mean, especially Chris Olave, but he's been kind of doing nothing most of the season.
I don't know why you said this game's not exciting. This is like battle for number 1 pick.
Titans have an argument with that.
So do the Patriots, I think.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely more than just these two teams in it, but
Yeah,
the way they've been playing, I know that Tyler will fight me with the Titans, but they're right there. It's not a 3-way game, so we got to give it to these two.
Dude, I legit can't tell you the name of the quarterback that was playing for the Saints at the end of the game. I couldn't tell you his name. Sure. Sounds like a thing. Yeah, no idea. Don't care. But Derek Carr's back. Saints got better by having Derek Carr back. I don't think Carr's good. I never have. If you've listened to this podcast forever, which I'm sure you have, then you know my feelings on Derek Carr. But they still got better regardless. So I think that they're a step up on the Panthers, and the Panthers are kind of going to struggle in this one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the Saints at the end of this are in that tank bowl place, but they are right now. And I think if they handle Carolina, they kind of separate themselves into that second tier. But Derek Carr coming back does make a big difference because they were playing, what could you say, Jake Painter and Spencer Rattler. So
yeah, Rattler started, Jake Painter came in.
Yes.
I don't care
this
about
guy's
either.
on a boat and he doesn't even
Terrible.
knows the random quarterback name that Tyler and I are like, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I know weird random facts. That's basically what I'm here for. Just weird random facts and names and random colleges.
So where do you go?
I do have a question. Who? Rattler? He went to US.
No, I know that. The other one.
Jake Haener.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's say Nebraska. It's probably not right. I have no idea.
He went to Nebraska now. Cody said so.
Okay. But serious question about the Saints. And maybe George is still going to ride on the high that he picked the Saints to win the division, so he's not going to like this suggestion. But if they lose this week to Carolina, there's a big day coming up on Tuesday. I'm talking about the NFL trade deadline.
Yeah.
Do you think Alvin Kamara could be on the move?
No, because they just signed him to a contract extension that they said they intend to keep him in New Orleans till he retires. Before that happened, I agree.
It's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, they just signed him to an extension. They're not going to move him. But I think that pretty much everybody else on that roster is available.
Maybe not Olave. I think that'd be a tough one because I think that he might be your, other developmental piece. But yeah, everyone else, I think, could be on the move, including Derek Carr.
Speaking of trade deadline, if anybody out there is listening to this show and has any trade questions, I know a lot of fantasy league trade deadlines are coming up soon too. This is your chance. You can ask them live. We'll answer them live. We got all three of us here. So you got the two people that think rationally, and then you got me with the hot takes telling you the exact opposite. Feel free to ask away, but I think that's plenty for Saints Panthers, if I do say so myself.
I agree. We can kind of go through some of these games a little quicker, but I do have Raiders at Bengals. T. Higgins out again for the Bengals, and they have not looked great with one of their two receivers so far this year. So that kind of makes me concerned, except for the fact that they're playing the Raiders.
Yay. This game, like, the Bengals have fallen so far, but I think it might be a good thing because I think Zach Taylor, his time is up. They need to get someone in there. Give some life in that offense. They need to figure some things out. I know Zach Moss also popped up on the injury report today. Doesn't sound like he's going to go. That sounds like I think he was listed as doubtful with a neck. which if you pop up on Friday with a neck, like that's kind of scary. And only him and Chase Brown have had any rushing attempts all season from the running backs. So could be a big Chase Brown week. Or like if you want to go find out who the third string is, I can't remember the name off the top of my head. Maybe in like a DFS play, just because they've been so committee. Like, do they continue that with the next guy? Might be a cheap, fun option.
Their big problem is they can't run the ball, though. So I find it hard to believe some random third running back would come in and get any kind of carries and do anything worth something. But
dude, you never know. Honestly, it's a spark and it's a fresh face. I mean,
Fresh legs, week 9.
Sometimes offensive lines block harder for the newbie because, it could be somebody who's fun in camp and they want to see them succeed. Sometimes those fresh legs, sometimes that works. Or sometimes opposing defenses don't game plan for a new running back quite as much and don't really know how to defend them because it's someone new that they're not used to. So you never know, but I hear what you're saying. They haven't been good at the run. Why would they be good now? Makes sense.
The offensive line blocks better because it's somebody not named Zach Moss. That's exciting.
Or just give all the carries to Chase Brown. He's electric.
Or just give all the carries to Chase Brown. Commanders at Giants. I just want to get your guys' take on the Commanders' Hail Mary.
It's beautiful.
Glorious. Shout out Tyreek Stevens.
Beautiful. Oh, no. That's just a phenomenal Hail Mary. Better than any Aaron Rodgers Hail Mary, I would say.
Sure. If you want to believe that, that's fine. But I think it is worth noting, like the Hail Mary makes a ton of sense. Like, great play, tipped up, way to be there, right time. But like the play before that, the Bears to just give up a 15-yard out to get them into Hail Mary range and not even play the sidelines. Like, they played the Hail Mary from like the 20 and let them get to the 45. Like, that was like the more intrigue, like just to even be in that moment. Like, that was back-to-back terrible decisions by the Bears defense. As Packers fans say, the Bears still suck.
And can I also say that when it comes down to the game on the line with 1 second left and you need the whole field for a touchdown, I still will choose the Hail Mary any day over that stupid pitch play that never works. I hate it. I don't care about the Miami Miracle. I don't care. Just
I think
there's been like 2 pitch plays that have worked in the last 50 years. So
yeah, there's like 2 onside kicks a year too. So like, but you still got to try. Like, if you're at the 10-yard line, there's no point of throwing it to the 50. Like, you got to try the pitch play.
I hear what you're saying. Like, from the 10-yard line, yes, but I've seen the pitch play from like the 40. Like, even if you have if your starter doesn't have the arm to get it there and you have a backup that does, like, I still like the odds of the Hail Mary better.
Man, I remember back to when
Jackpot as a kid.
I remember back to when Peyton Manning was still playing quarterback and they used to sub in Brock Osweiler to throw the Hail Mary at the end of the half because they just knew they needed to. They have to have somebody on the roster that can do it.
Or in defense, I like when they're at like the 40, when they like set up a play, but basically a deep hook and ladder, right? Like, they throw and get everyone deep, then they have a guy come across and then they pitch it behind that, do like one pitch that's designed, and they get the other guys blocking, like almost like a schemed up play. I agree with you on that. I think that's, if you're going to do that kind of overthrowing it, true Hail Mary. But with these quarterbacks these days, like, pretty much all of them can throw 60 yards in the air.
Right. And I don't know. I just feel like the pitch play, it's almost like embarrassing to watch. Like, I'd rather you just take the knee and call it a loss than do that stupid pitch play. I hate it so much.
There's so many that just look completely ugly, result in a defensive touchdown, get 2 pitches, you have an offensive lineman with it and either gets tackled or fumbles. Like, they're ugly.
Sorry, I got us off on a tangent. Commanders, Giants.
Yeah, no, you were off on a better tangent than Commanders.
Will the Commanders win this game and score a touchdown this time?
I think so much has changed with the Commanders since that second game of the season. I sure hope so.
It's the Giants.
Daniel Jones has better stats this year than Patrick Mahomes does, let's be honest.
Okay. He still does. The Giants. Patrick Mahomes has also looked like butt this year, so
that's true.
And his team's undefeated, so
the NFL makes no sense. Those refs' pockets are stuffed for sure.
All right. Cowboys, Falcons.
Yeah, I think that's the next one.
Yeah. So my question on this one is, if the Cowboys lose this game, do they start selling?
They should.
Mike
They
McCarthy's
won't, but
going
they
to get
should.
fired.
Well,
Who are they
that
going to?
definitely should happen. Let's be honest.
But let's think about this. Who are they going to sell?
Bro, there's got to be
Like-
somebody on the team. Like, it doesn't have to be your stud receiver or running
No.
back. Like, tell me there's not an offensive lineman or a defensive back or something that could be valuable to someone who's on a 1-year deal.
I'm legit asking like the question on who is valuable. Like, and maybe if you want to, a guy that gets.
I'll be the research department. Give me a sec.
Yeah, and I'll just talk out some names, like because they just re-signed CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott. Obviously, they're not going anywhere. If they were, going into their contract year, they could have been interesting names. Like Micah Parsons hurt, but he doesn't have a deal. I mean, that would be one heck of a trade deadline. God forbid if the Detroit Lions could figure out how to get Micah Parsons on that team. I would not appreciate that one. But I don't think he's going anywhere. Dexter Lawrence, maybe, as an older defensive end that's playing pretty well. Maybe it's a guy that you can look at.
All right, let's see here. Here's the people expiring this year. We got Zach Martin, DeMarcus Lawrence, Brandon Cooks, Trey Lance, Eric Kendricks, Zeke, CJ Goodwin, Rico Dowdle, Nick Vigil, Carl Lawson.
I think of all those, it's Dexter Lawrence is the guy that I would think has the most value and could be on the move. He's still playing pretty good this year. If they could make a move for him, because he's getting up there in age.
And he's 33, right? And Zach Martin's 35 and in a contract year too. And there's plenty of teams that could use a good offensive lineman. That'd be another one. But they would probably have to eat a lot of the contract.
Mm-hmm. Those are the two that stood out to me. And then Brandon Cooks would have been a slam dunk, but he's out for the season. Or he's on IR. He might not be out for the season. I might be remembering correctly.
Yeah. And he also... Dude, did you all see Robert? Sorry, I know I'm going complete off a tangent. Robert Woods caught a pass last night in the Texans game, and I was like, "Oh yeah, Bobby Tree still plays."
I forgot he went to the Texans. The fact that we're this far down the depth chart, and then all of a sudden now we finally have a Bobby Tree sighting, it's very sad to see how far down it's gone.
I love it because the man talks so much smack when the Titans got rid of him. Like, now I'm going to be able to shine. Now I'm on a different team. Like, and he's done nothing. So.
No, he was second fiddle to Nico Collins and Tank Dell immediately.
Yeah. Nico is good, dude. I'm so excited to get to watch Nico for years. That's a really exciting receiver. Like, every year there's a few people that emerge, and Nico Collins was not one I was expecting last year. And dude, he's fun to watch.
He is. I mean,
dude, enjoy Nico. I was hoping the Green Bay draft him when he's coming out 2 years ago, out of Michigan.
A man who can stretch the field, but he also has really developed enough as a receiver to be a solid wide receiver one. So it's really good to see.
All right.
Now this is the Tank Bowl.
Hold on. George has asked 100 questions. My turn for a question.
Please do.
Darnell Mooney. Do you trust him, or are you trying to sell high?
I mean, he's sure if you can sell high, like, I don't know if he doesn't have that, like, fantasy. You got to know your league, right? Like, if people just play by the number and they see it, you might be able to sell high for him. They play by names, then you're not going to get anything for Darnell Mooney. And you have better luck trading Zeke because they know the name. And that's just the ups and downs of fantasy football. I mean, I think he's
wide
a
receiver
solid
12 right now.
I know. I was going to say, I think he's a solid option. Like, but for me, I view him the same thing we were talking about with like Keon Coleman, with Jalen Waddle, like those guys that throw them in your lineup if you need to, but they're not guys I'm actively trying to put on. But you might have to. Like, heck, I think Puka got hurt again in practice. Like, you might be without him again. Like, you might have to rely on Darnell Mooney. That's the problem with fantasy football at this point. Some of those top guys are already hurt. You might have to play him. And at least he's been consistently doing it, and we're 9 weeks in. And Kirk seems to favor him. And the nice thing about Kirk Cousins is, he will throw the ball. And they're getting Mooney involved. There are just a couple other options there, too. So expect a couple dud weeks here and there. But you say that for every wide receiver at some point.
Looking at his numbers, the big thing that stinks is he is basically touchdown dependent. He has one game all season that he hasn't scored a touchdown that he scored more than 10 points in half PPR. And then 3 games with touchdowns, one of them had 2 touchdowns. But seeing how much that offense has taken a step and that he's getting targets, I like him kind of around that flex in a good matchup, or if you're desperate with injuries kind of tier.
Right. Yeah. I tend not to look at touchdowns because I feel like touchdowns are a skewed stat. I tend to look at targets. Like there's guys out there that get a lot of targets that don't have a lot of points, and those are the people that I'm targeting because they're bound to turn it around. If you're getting the ball thrown to you, you're gonna turn it around, or at least you have the best chance of turning it around. And Darnell Mooney has gotten 6 or more targets every week, but 2. I mean, week 1 he didn't get that, and the week they played the Panthers because they didn't need to. Outside of that, he's gotten at least 6 targets every game. So that's somebody he is throwing to, and I do like that. Um, I don't think he's quite as touchdown dependent as you say, but then again, if he's only has 3 games with touchdowns and he's wide receiver 12, it goes to show what the wide receiver market is this year anyway. It's not as explosive as we've seen in years past.
And I mean, to your argument too, his floor is basically 6-7 points. So you're not going to throw up a 0.
I agree. I like him. I'd play him over Keon Coleman, and I like Keon Coleman too. So, but I think Mooney is good. As a guy, I didn't expect anything from him. I let him go in a dynasty league. I think Tyler picked him up, but
I think so too.
Good to see him. Like he's always had talent. He just never had a good quarterback, and Kirk is not what he once was, but at least he has someone competent throwing him the ball.
Exactly why I think it's changed so much, because there was never a competent quarterback with him in Chicago.
And is there
Tyler,
still a competent quarterback in Chicago?
I don't know. I'm not really sure.
That's a debate.
Tyler, you want to talk about the Tank Bowl?
Yeah, dude, this game sucks. Don't start Tony Pollard and that's it. Nobody else.
Cool. That's enough for that one.
What about Ridley?
Late window.
Didn't Ridley have 100 yards in the first quarter last week?
Yeah, and what did he do the rest of the game? Nothing.
I don't know. You stopped texting, so that was the amount of eyes I had on the Titans game.
Yeah, no, Ridley went off in the first quarter, but also Ridley's been frustrated all season about not getting the ball, and then once they did start throwing him the ball, like he started half running routes, he was dropping a lot of passes, like he just did not seem like himself. So they forced him the ball in that first quarter, and it worked. He definitely went off, but then the Titans fall apart in the second half. They don't game plan very well at all. I think Ridley is at this point a flex play. If Mason Rudolph is starting, if Will Levis is starting, they have absolutely zero connection together. He's on your bench until proven otherwise. But even with Mason Rudolph in, like he's a flex play if you need to. If you're missing Deebo Samuel and Puka and you had Stephon Diggs and all this other stuff, like at that point, yeah, I would throw Calvin Ridley in my lineup. I would trust him more than some of the free agents out there, but otherwise, leave him on your bench.
Worth rostering, not playing him. That's where I'm at.
I will say I did see Calvin Ridley dropped in a ton of leagues before last week because of how bad he's been playing, and I don't blame you guys at all. I did go and pick him up in a lot of leagues because it's a number 1 receiver. I understand it's a bad team, and I understand he hasn't done much yet, but he's getting the targets, and it's a number 1 receiver. Anytime that kind of a guy is out there, I want him on my team. That's good depth because I like the upside a lot more than some of these other guys who, maybe they're a speed threat who get 2 targets a game and just hoping for that boom touchdown. Like I'll take the guy that gets the targets over that. So if he is available in your league, make sure you pick him up.
I like that advice.
Me too. All right. Let's take a look at the late window. And we got the Chicago Bears traveling to the division leading Arizona Cardinals. That's not going to stay, but that's fun while it lasts.
Are we sure? Never know.
I don't know. I mean, that division is interesting because the 49ers are so banged up and the Seahawks are good, but they're a little wishy-washy. And then the Rams, obviously, I think they looked like a lot better when they had Puka and Cup, but it seems like that might be short lived. A lot of question marks. You got a good point.
Yeah, I mean, I did pick the Cardinals to win or not win, but make the playoffs. So I'd love to see them win the division. But I get what you're saying. It seems like San Francisco is going to get healthy. CMC is going to come back. But we're not talking about them. We're talking about the Cardinals as they play the Chicago Bears. And two teams that some might say are doing better than expectations. Some people might say they're not doing what they expected. But I think this is a good matchup. But it's the Cardinals. You're playing the guys you've been playing all season long. McBride, Marvin Harrison, Kyler, James Conner.
Yeah, I think this is the two teams that at this point in the season, like typically by this point in the season, you know what you're getting out of teams. They're either good or they're bad. You know what you're getting. But these are the only two teams that are still like a huge question mark to me. So I'm very curious to see how they play against each other, which one pulls it out. But dude, Keenan Allen is frustrating.
Yes.
The Bears wide receivers are frustrating. I think we can make it a wider statement.
I mean, yes, DJ Moore is also frustrating, but I trust him more than Keenan Allen. Like, I was texting George. I remember, so I was in a game where I desperately needed Keenan Allen to get like 2 catches or like 2 points, something stupid small, and that's all I needed for me to win. And George and I started hyper focusing on Keenan Allen, and the dude looks slow. Like, I don't know if he was trying, like not trying as hard at the end of the game, or maybe it just wasn't a route designed to go to him. So he was just being a decoy. I don't know what it was. But once we started hyper focusing on him, like he looked slow and it was painful. I was like, this dude's never going to get open.
Yeah, and I think part of that is Keenan Allen's never been fast. He's always had quick feet, but he's never been fast. And he's always been an elite route runner. And sometimes he still flashes that, but as he's gotten older and slowed down even more, and he just doesn't have that connection with Caleb yet. I mean, he did miss some time. He had that 2 touchdown game, but outside of that, he has been super frustrating. I don't even think he had 2 catches all of last week on 3 targets or something. Maybe that was 2 weeks ago, but I know it's something like that. I think I might have.
Week, yeah.
I think I might even have dropped him in a league this week just because I needed to cover buys because I had too many 49ers. And I was like, well, if I lose Keenan Allen, yeah, he might catch a touchdown and have a good week, but he's been so frustrating all season long that I'll just move on. And if he blows out in the second half or blows up, that's on me. But I'm right there with you. Super frustrating for him. I mean, this whole Bears offense, like some weeks they look good. I mean, even last week when they played the Commanders, Caleb Williams had like 30 passing yards until like 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And then had like 150. Like, makes no
There was
sense.
almost no offense in that entire game until the fourth quarter, too. But, like, still, that's what the Bears have been. And that's why Keenan Allen currently is their leading receiver with not even 350 yards so far on the season. He's not pacing towards 1,000. None of them are.
I don't know. You could tell I'm getting older because, like, this season, for some reason, once it hits the 4:00 games, I take the 4:00 nap, and I don't know why. But I as soon as it hits 4:00, I start dozing off on the couch, and I wake up at the 8:00 game. But it looks like this late window is already setting up for the 4:00 nap. I'm kind of looking forward to it.
Whoa!
It's a cozy
Talk
nap.
about Lions Packers and say why it's entertaining, Cody.
Well, it depends. There's a big questionable on the list. You know, does Tyler want to watch Malik Willis win another game? That's the real
I
question.
would love that. I love Malik Willis.
But yeah, this Packers Lions game, it should be a good one if Love plays. With them having the bye next week, I am intrigued to see if they're like, okay, we know you're like 90%, but let's get you 100% and get you going down the stretch. Like, I think it's a good chance that Malik ends up playing. But I also thought it was a good chance I was going to play, and he didn't earlier in the season. So I've been great at predicting that. Josh Jacobs is questionable. If there's no Love and no Josh Jacobs, I mean, this is an easy game for the Lions. And then underrated, our center is probably going to miss the game too. So shake up on the offensive line. Should be a good game on paper, but it's starting to lean more in the Lions' favor, even with them missing guys like Jameson Williams to suspension.
The Lions are kind of playing like potentially the best team in the league right now, too. So it's an uphill battle anyway for the Packers, but that division in general is solid.
Yeah, let's let these Lions peak too early, though. I like it.
That is a potential.
No, man, I want the Lions to win the Super Bowl. They deserve it. They've been through some stuff these last few years. Packers have had their glory. Let the Lions have their time.
Yeah. Until we're out, then we can have a conversation. But as long as the Packers are still in it, can't say that. You'd say the same thing with the Texans. Once we get the playoffs and the Titans are out, you might cheer for them because they've been through it.
Dude, the Titans are already out, so I'm already rooting for the Texans.
Fair. I understand. It is interesting though. I know we're only in week 9, so there's still a lot of season. But in terms of positioning, winner of this game's the top seed in the NFC. Loser goes to the 7 seed, just because of how tight the top is.
Mhm.
So big implications early, as these two teams face off, and potentially one without their quarterback.
3 teams from that division more than likely go into the playoffs. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out in the end. Anything else, Lions Packers?
Go Malik Willis. Love that dude.
Go Malik Willis.
Go Malik Willis.
Such a good dude, honestly.
Dude, I'm not gonna lie. I was so annoyed when we traded for Malik Willis. Side tangent. I was like, bro, what are we doing? Mainly because I'm friends with a Titans fan who was like, this dude cannot throw the ball. And I don't know. We run the ball so much when he's back there. He only throws a couple times. I don't know if he can actually throw the ball. He makes one good pass every game, and it helps us score a winning touchdown. I love it. They're using him right. But he's a good dude. He's doing it the right way. So he's easy to root for.
Yeah, that he is.
Agreed. Moving on, we got the Jaguars traveling up to Philadelphia to face the Eagles. Homecoming of Doug Peterson. We'll see if he makes it out of Philadelphia because the Jaguars are not exactly looking great still. Starting on the Jaguar side of the ball, it looks like Travis Etienne's going to be a go, but how does the backfield shake out?
I'm not starting any of them.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm right there with you.
I'm not starting ETN. I'm not starting Tank Bigsby. I'm not starting a Jaguars running back or receiver.
Are you starting a Jaguar?
Brian Thomas.
Brian Thomas, if he plays. That's a good point.
If he's healthy, I'll play him in my flex.
They lost Kirk for the season too after this year.
Yeah, they did lose Kirk for the season. And I guess it is worth noting, I reported that they were expecting 2 to 4 week absence from Brian Thomas. And then all of a sudden, when they got the clean MRI, they realized it was more of a pain management thing. And he is questionable. So there's a chance he does go. Big change from how we reported it on Monday.
Yeah, somebody's got to catch the ball. I think Evan Ingram's still a good option at tight end. But Cody doesn't talk about tight ends. So
it's not National Tight Ends Day anymore either. So they're going to go right back to mediocrity.
Do you want to talk about a tight end?
I'm listening.
All right. So Evan Ingram or TJ Hawkinson coming back. I know we're going to talk about Colts Vikings Sunday Night Football in here in a second, but if you want to think about it and save it for that game, we can keep moving through.
I feel like TJ Hawkinson is not going to do a whole lot in his first game back. It's his first game back. However, I will say that I do think they're going to try and get him a touchdown. It's very NFL fashion to have somebody making a big return to try to get them that touchdown. So just like Nick Chubb in his first game back after how long he got that touchdown, like you make sure he gets it. So if you want to bank on that touchdown, then I think it could be Hawkinson. But even then, I think his ceiling is 8 points. And his floor is 1 point, where I feel like Evan Ingram's floor is around 3 to 4 and his ceiling is somewhere over 10. So I like Evan Ingram a little bit more. But even yet, I mean, we're talking about a ceiling of like 12 and a floor.
Right. This is why I don't like talking about tight ends.
No matter what, they're trash. But I like Evan Ingram better than Hawkinson.
The ceiling's definitely higher on Ingram, especially because we'll see how his role adjusts with no Kirk and potentially no Thomas. Got to go with Ingram here, but in the long term, it's Hawkinson.
I think Hawkinson 2 weeks from now is a must start.
Oh, yeah.
Like once he gets the conditioning, once he gets the rhythm, it might even be starting next week. I might eat my words and he might go off this week, but I think in 2 weeks he'll be a must start. But for right now, I think they're going to ease him back in. So I wouldn't start him just yet, personally. Mm-hmm. Then again, tight ends suck. So who cares? You could also throw him in. I'm benching Sam Laporta in World Cup. So
yeah. Tush pushing Jalen Hurts is back. He had 3 rushing touchdowns last week, so I know we all missed that. It got to the point where Saquon Barkley went down on the 1-yard line, and he immediately just pointed at the sideline like, call the tush push, we're fine. So I think the Eagles are right back to where we expected them to be. And does that affect your value on any of their players, or is this just kind of where we pitched it up to the beginning of the season?
Nope. I think Devontae Smith is less than what he was when we started the season, but outside of that guy, and even then it's a slight step down. But outside of that, I mean, you're starting AJ, you're starting Saquon. Hurts is going to get the rushing touchdowns. Devontae Smith is a good wide receiver 2/flex. I mean, it's the same thing.
Smith
I don't like
and Waddle
Dallas
basically
Goedert
the
at
same
all.
player.
Yeah,
that's what I thought.
100%. Yeah, they're going to have a big game here. They're going to have a dud there. They're the same player. But again, you drafted that guy knowing what you were going to get out of that. So
Cool. I think that's good for that game, but I don't know which one's next.
Rams at Seahawks. We have to talk about Puka Nakua's injury, even though we don't know a whole lot. But it's an injury to the same knee that forced him to go on IR earlier this season. Not a good look. I'm expecting him to miss time, especially because it popped up on a Thursday. But the Rams just started to get everything together. I started to get excited about them again. I really just hope Cooper Kupp eats with Puka Nakua out now.
Yeah. I mean, the Rams got that big win, so it doesn't sound like he and McVay didn't seem too interested in trading him. I know he was the talk of some trades a couple weeks ago. Sounds like he's staying put. And
they're a half game out of the division.
Yeah, because that division's so close too, just all
Everyone's
around 500.
4-4 except for them is 3-4.
Right. And they beat the 49ers, so.
Yep. So no, I don't think the Rams are blowing it up at the trade deadline, but it just stinks to see that they finally got everybody back, and now Puka's out with the same exact injury, going into a divisional game against the Seahawks, who are actually missing DK Metcalf again. So both teams missing a receiver, but hate to see it.
yeah, and I think even with Puka out, Matt Stafford is still a streamer. Like if you're a Brock Purdy owner or something, I still think Matt Stafford's a good streaming option this week. I still think he's going to have a good week even without Puka.
He's got a cutback at least.
I'm sorry. Did you just say something nice about Matt Stafford? I got to pinch myself.
I did. I said he's a streaming
What the heck
option
happened these
1
last
week.
2 weeks?
Dude,
I'm chest palpitations right now.
Dude, I outbid you for Matt Stafford in a dynasty league in a free agency bidding.
That's even funnier.
It's a different year.
This is true. Also, your team was ready to compete. My team is so bad.
That's true. It's also true. My team's not ready to compete anymore. My entire team is hurt.
Everyone's entire team is hurt.
My team had Justin Ross as like wide receiver 2 on it, though, that I took over in this dynasty league. So
Who?
We can be in the dumps for Justin Ross, former Clemson wide receiver.
No, I was just making a joke. Thank you, Cody, for flexing, though.
You're welcome. Always.
Everybody comment your most obscure player that you're starting in a dynasty league. Mine is Ray McLeod. So
you're a Ray over Mooney kind of guy. I see.
No, it's Mooney wasn't available, and that's all I had. Thanks.
Or does that stem from you didn't like when he would catch passes over Cole Kmet during the Chicago Bears era? So you just don't like Mooney?
No, that is I wish I could add Darnell Mooney, but he was already owned because it's the dynasty league, so I had to add Ray McLeod.
If it's FXF, I picked up Darnell Mooney because Cody dropped him.
That's exactly where it is. And then
I
was
Bub Means.
McLeod.
Got Bub Means in FXF.
I had to start Austin Hooper the other day in Dynasty.
I used to start Austin Hooper all the time. He had that one.
Yeah, but now he's
year.
tight end 3 for the Raiders.
Yeah, that's true.
Joe Flacco starting for the Colts.
I drafted Brock Bowers in that league thinking like it's a dynasty league, tight ends are terrible, but Brock Bowers is like my wide receiver 3 at this point. So I'm starting him every week. He's doing really well for a rookie tight end.
That's weird to say too. We got 2 more games. We
got one more game kind of, but Colts at Vikings. Joe Flacco making his potential permanent starting debut. We talked about Hawkinson making his debut for the Vikings. Should be a pretty good game.
Yeah, it should be a good game. With Flacco, do you like Michael Pittman? Like, do you have more confidence in him?
Yes, I do. I put him right back in my lineup. Maybe I'm going to regret it. I started him over Tank Dell. That was probably a dumb move, but
That was a dumb move. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
But it's easy to
Tank Dell
say
did score,
after
but
we saw what Tank Dell did. So
Yeah, I mean, maybe taking into the fact that Tank Dell was a wide receiver one and there was no Diggs, Dell should have got a little bit more of a boost. But when you saw Dell's been doing pretty much nothing even without Nico Collins. So, but
no, like I said, it's easy for me to say because we already saw what happened on Thursday and Tank had a good game. But anyway, no, I think with Flacco starting, I think Pittman's going to get a boost. I would say Pittman's now a wide receiver 2. And I think that Josh Downs is a flex slash wide receiver 2, depending on how bad your team is. But I would say that both of them are borderline startable now.
I think Downs has jumped Pittman as wide receiver 1 on that team, at least for fantasy upside, if not like physically for targets and everything else. But Pittman did have 3 straight weeks over 10.5 PPR points with Flacco in before. So the floor comes up to startable.
I agree.
Anything else to talk about here?
I give up on Jordan Addison. That's it.
Yeah. We were wishing Jordan Addison was going to be a Devontae Smith or Jalen Waddle. It's not happening. Especially with Hawkinson back.
No, I agree.
Yeah. Monday night game, we'll talk about it more on Monday's show. We do have Buccaneers at Chiefs, so just worth noting there. That game exists, but not really any storylines or injuries that I'm thinking of to talk about there. Anything you want to mention before we move on?
I'm just glad there's only one Monday night game.
Yes, there was another one of those double headers while you were gone. It was a great time.
Yeah, and wasn't it like ESPN Plus exclusive for the one?
Yeah, it was a Cardinals-Chargers game that was the least watched NFL game since 2006 or something.
Yeah, because who has NFL ESPN Plus?
Yes.
I do.
That guy right there.
I do too, as well. Like,
Well, ESPN
I did not
Plus
watch it.
partnered with NHL, so you can actually see every NHL game with ESPN Plus, which I think is an awesome thing. So I have it because you get to see the extra content, and I can watch the Predators play. So as a hockey fan, it's really good to have.
makes sense.
The Couch
Kinda
GMs
like-
Hockey Podcast, dropping the knowledge.
I will not be on that.
I can't pronounce half the players. Or more.
I don't know what offsides is or icing.
I drew you a diagram.
Yeah, I still don't understand. Icing goes on cake. That's all I know.
Cool. Let's
We just lost
have some
fans.
more fun here, and then let's spend Tyler's money.
Cha-ching!
We're spending Tyler's money on not ESPN Plus. What do you got for us?
All right. I want to start off by saying Tyler has no money, but we're still going to spend it anyway. So today we have a quarterback parlay, 4 legs. Every single one of these legs is to have 225 passing yards. That is a magic number. So I have 4 quarterbacks to hit 225 passing yards. These guys are Jalen Hurts, Matt Stafford, Kyler Murray, and Justin Herbert, all to hit 225. Most of them are plus odds to hit 225 because they're not expected to be there, which helps the odds. This is a $5 bet to win $63.84. It is plus 1176.
Can you repeat it one more time?
Sure. 4 quarterbacks to hit 225 passing yards. It is Jalen Hurts against the Jags, Matt Stafford against the Seahawks, Kyler Murray against the Bears, and Justin Herbert against the Browns.
I missed the Kyler Murray one. I think it's. I hate parlays because that's like easy, but then you remember like the NFL is down in scoring and passing yards, and
Except for
like
last week.
250 is the new 300 this year. It seems like, and like could be tough, could be scary. He'll probably go 3 for 4, and the other one will throw 222, and then just really irk you the most.
Sounds about right.
Jalen Hurts will throw 222 and get 3 tush-push touchdowns again. You know it.
That man's annoying.
No, I like the fact that you went out with two rushing first quarterbacks with Hurts and Kyler, but I like your parlay there too.
Well, if you guys want to match my parlay, feel free and then send me a screenshot when we win big money. I'm sure if Kempy's watching this, he probably already made the bet and he's probably putting $100 on it. So can't wait to see the big money you're making, my man.
Can't wait to see that bet slip come up in our group chat. One more segment. We normally would do a Thursday night preview here, but obviously it's Friday. So why don't we talk about the Couch GMs World Cup? So obviously here we are 8 weeks into week 9 now. And we have a somewhat mid-season update here for the Couch GMs World Cup. It's nice having all three of us here because Tyler leads Group A, Cody leads Group B, I sit at the basement of Group C, but you guys have been more exposed to your league, so I can throw the standings up on the screen here if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify or Facebook. Check it out. Tyler, tell us a little bit about how Group A has been shaking out so far.
Yeah, so far it's been a very top-heavy league. I would say the top 5 is all championship contenders, and the bottom 5 is all people hoping to make a wild card and making a lucky run. But in reality, it's that top 5 is going strong. And I feel like Colin is really a guy to watch out for. I love my team personally, but I'm biased. So I'm hoping that I can pull this whole thing off, but I think Colin is the guy to watch out for right now. He is the one that I would put my money on to win the championship out of Group A. I love his team. Still, it's such a top heavy league that it's tough. The fact that 5th place can still get a bye is awesome. And the fact that 9th place is only 1 game out of a playoff spot, awesome. It makes the whole league more exciting. So everyone is still in it, but dude, it has been hard to get any trades going in this league. I sent out 5 trades, and the only person that's even responding to them is Bree, and all she's doing is rejecting them. And I say counter my trade, and then I never hear from her again. So Bree, if you're listening, which I know you are, accept my trade. Otherwise, people, do not just let a trade sit there. It is one of my biggest pet peeves. If someone sends you a trade and you don't like it, reject it. If you kind of like it, counter. If you like it, accept it. Regardless, respond to the trade. Do something.
I don't think I've ever seen a league with such a clean break as this one. How there's literally a 2-game gap between 5th and 6th. It's impressive.
Yeah.
We can move on to Group B. Let's see if the switch works. Does it? No? No, okay. We're going to have to switch it out here, Cody. Sorry.
You do you, man. You do you.
Cody, you lead off Group B. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, besides the fact that you're in 1st place, this league is completely different if you just look at the records alone.
Yeah, so like you said, I'm currently in 1st. I don't know how. I only have 809 points on the season. Yet I'm 6-2. As you can see, it's Reed and Andrew dominating. The only 2 people over 900 points, and they're both in the thousands, so almost a 200 point. They're
the only 2 people in the thousands in all 3 leagues. I just feel like I should mention that.
Yeah, like their team are putting up points. Andrew, he's made a couple trades. We've had a couple trades go through in our league. Some of them have been iffy, like not collusion or anything like that, but just question marks. But they're working out for those teams. But to your point, 3 to 10, 2 games separates them. With what is that? 3 to 8, all sitting at the same record. So it's going to be very competitive down the stretch to make the playoffs, and I definitely don't feel comfortable at 6-2 as the number 1 seed.
To be 4-4 with over 1,000 points scored is insane. Absolutely insane. That is the most unlucky. Like, can you pull up the league? What's his points against?
Yeah, give me 1 second. I already have a tab up here.
Good.
Group B, points against for number
Andrew
2. Is that
S.
Reed?
Memphis Pharaohs.
987. So he's almost at 1,000 against too.
Unreal. That is some bad luck right there.
I'm going to look and see if I beat Andrew, if he's one of my losses.
And then on the flip side, Reed, who's 5-3, still with 3 losses over 1,000 points. He only has 888 points against. That's still high. If I sort it by, that is still the 2nd highest points against in the league, but it's a lot closer to the pack.
Andrew S. with the points against. I'm like, man, I feel your pain. I've been there in that situation before. It's the same. like I feel the pain of Kempe. I mean, look, 828 points is no joke, and he's in 9th place. Now, granted, he's only one game out of 3rd, so I don't feel too bad, but still, you're putting up some pretty good points there, and you are not as competitive. And I feel like knowing Kempe personally, that's kind of his mantra for fantasy this whole year. Every league I'm in with him, he is doing really well points wise, but he just can't win a game outside of our dynasty where he's absolutely dominating. But every other league, like, man, he is struggling.
Definitely struggling. But he's
I did beat Reed last week.
a final.
So Reed and me played for the number 1 seed, and I took him out last week, which is a big feat.
Crazy, man.
809 points, and this guy's sitting here in first place. He is the lowest scoring Couch GM, as well as one of the lower scoring players in his league. Moving on to Group C. Once I get this up here. I'm not doing as well as you guys. It's really bad. I have more points scored than Cody, and I'm sitting down there at 2 and 6. But if you look at it here, not quite as close. It's kind of in the middle of the two leagues, but I'm still 2 games out of 5th place, 2 games out of a playoff spot. But Nick has been absolutely dominating in this league. He was undefeated through, I think it was 6 weeks before he got his first loss. Obviously not putting up the 1,000 points, but pretty clearly the leader in points for as well. So he's been the person to beat so far. Mike has also been doing solid. And a little shout out to Neil, who I know has been feeling down, and he's down there in 7th place. He's been a very solid team as well and hitting a lot of bad luck. And being as close as you are to a playoff spot still with a solid team, that's kind of what I'm trying to hold on to. And I don't even have as solid of a team as you do. So
yeah, I know Shelby's very upset being 2 and 6 and in 10th place and having that bad of a season. I get that, but luckily for her, she did win in year 1, so there's a lot of stress off. And I know George was trying to talk smack because I was saying, "What's up? 2 Couch GMs are first, and you're in last." And he's like, "I'm not last. Your wife is last." And I was like, "Yeah, she won a year, so you're in last because she's not. It doesn't matter for her." So
yeah, she's
George,
playing for something, but it's simultaneously playing for nothing.
Yeah, it's a weird situation to win in year 1 and had 2 years to kind of just buffer and wait for that championship season. It's a weird thing. But hey, George, I'm going to need you to step it up because this is the Couch GMs World Cup. We're trying to prove a point here. We're trying to show that we are the people they should be listening to, and you are bringing us down there, bud. Figure it out.
When we get off the air here, I'll show you my roster, and we'll see if what you can give me advice on to give me that spark, Mr. First Place over here.
Yeah, I got you. Man. Get my team. That's what you got to do.
There's 2 misters in first place. Just make sure.
You have 800
points.
You have like negative 800 points here. It's fine.
Hey, but I'm getting Tyreek Hill back and Devon Achane now that 2 is back.
Fair assessments.
To make it 6 and 2 with Tyreek Hill. Put some respect on my name.
Yeah.
George is
all
like,
right, Cody. Yeah.
Go back.
Sure. Yeah, I'll take this out. Bring us back to big faces here, Cody.
Big faces and low places. Nah, I'm just kidding.
Dude, we are off the rails.
I know. I'm trying to end the show. Anything else you all want to talk about? Couch GMs World Cup? Anything fun? Or you just want to get to the weekend?
We'll get to the weekend, get to the games, but we'll keep you updated more on the World Cup as we get closer to the fantasy playoffs and see if I can make my triumphant rebound.
You better. This is embarrassing.
But if not, George, there's always next year. Because there's 1 year of qualifiers left. Couch GMs World Cup. But as always, thanks for listening to another episode of the Couch GMs podcast. It's good to be back. Tyler, George, and myself love talking football. Make sure you're in the chats, liking, commenting, social media at the Couch GMs. But I don't even know our own name. But we'll be back on Monday, and we'll talk to you all